Hello, everybody. Back again with another Good Gut Live. Today's topic is all about Dahlia. She's our lead dietitian, our CEO, our co-founder. We want to hear her health story. Maybe you guys are familiar with her health story. If you're her patient, you probably are and have heard tidbits about her health story, but we want to get into it today. We're live. We want to see your questions, whether you're watching YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all that goodness. So I am James Marin, integrative registered dietitian, environmental nutritionist.
I'm Dahlia Marin. I'm registered dietitian nutritionist, and I'm newly a certified gut nutritionist. So
Wow.
adding more gut certifications to my belt so that way I can just continue to learn with you all. I always love learning and sharing everything that I get to learn and help using it to help people. So I'll continue imparting some of that knowledge that I've gleaned.
Yes. So, Dahlia, where do you want to go? I mean, let's just start off by saying, for those watching, again, starting out this video, it's saying you were diagnosed at one point. I mean, you were obese, you had IBS, pretty much. You had prediabetes, high cholesterol, high triglycerides,
An autoimmune thyroid condition.
an autoimmune thyroid condition. What else?
Polycystic ovarian
Polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. Am I missing anything?
That's all I can think of for now.
That's it for now.
And keep in mind, all of that I was diagnosed with pretty much in one single day of my life.
Wow.
So,
Yep.
But clearly my health story doesn't start there. So I feel like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when, the theme song. So let me tell you my health story because I always say I was a patient before I was a provider. And I think like many people, I got into becoming a healthcare practitioner because I had my own great experiences with healthcare practitioners. I also had not so great experiences with healthcare practitioners. And I just felt like I wanted to become empowered to take my own health into my hands and also bring in trusted members. I think a lot of times I hear from patients that they feel like their healthcare practitioners are their enemies or, oh, the doctor told me this, or just they wanted to prescribe me medication and get rid of me. And honestly, we have so many friends who are doctors and, dear people in our lives. And I will admit, I used to have similar sentiments before I really got to know the other side of things. Doctors do not set out in medical school, nor do dietitians or other healthcare practitioners be like, ooh, I want to spend 7 minutes with my patients and just prescribe a pill for every ill and provide terrible care, right? I think it's a much larger story than that. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes with insurance payers, the way our healthcare system is set up here, especially in the United States, but also in other countries as well. So I think that I always like to say that first off. I think that healthcare practitioners have their best intentions. I think maybe sometimes people don't understand their limitations or maybe aren't forthcoming when they're limited in what they know and how they can help somebody. But I always say I was a patient before I was a provider. And now, as a registered dietitian nutritionist, I've been practicing for almost a decade. I've gotten to work with thousands and thousands of patients from all over the entire world, literally. We do offer telehealth in our practice. And so it affords me that opportunity to connect with people from all over the entire world. So I've gotten to hear a lot about the medical system throughout other parts of the world as well. And, the good and the bad with all of it. And that's really life, right? There's, if you want to see it as good or bad, but there's balance in everything. So I got started in my health story really from the very beginning. I think that's where all of our health stories start, right? Even before we start. And one thing I like to do when I start a visit with a new patient is to say, tell me your gut health story. And I want to hear all details, right? Everything from womb to present. And I ask that about womb. How was your mom's gut health? How was your mom's health when she was pregnant with you? Because we know so many studies have associated the first 1,000 days of life, pregnancy, and up to 2 years old with health outcomes in life. And so the first 1,000 days of life are very involved with the formation of the gut microbiome of the brain and influences IQ, with the immune system, which is deeply rooted in the gut. 70+% of our immune system is stemming from our gut. So I want to know, what was mom's health like, her gut health, mental health like during pregnancy? And, I know for me, for my personal health story, my parents were literally buying a house. My mom went into labor with me the day that they were moving into a new house. So needless to say, I was the third child. They already had their hands full with two other kids, and they were moving, and here they were with a new baby. So I think I was brought into the world in quite a chaotic manner, I will say.
It's very stressful.
Yes. And, I know my mom also struggled in her life with some of her own gut health issues. I never really had the chance to get into specifics with her about it, but I did see her struggle with her own gut health issues. So I am presuming that maybe she had some of these issues when she was pregnant with me. I know from there that I was breastfed for a couple of months, but my mom went back to work after a couple of weeks, like many women have to do in this country who are working. So I was combination fed breast milk and formula. And we know also that that impacts the gut microbiome because there are great immunoglobulins. There are great prebiotics in breast milk as well. They're called human milk oligosaccharides, HMOs. So I got some. And, the World Health Organization recommends 2 years as the gold standard for breastfeeding. American Academy of Pediatrics and other organizations recommend at least a year. So I got to have some breast milk, and I didn't get to have more than a couple months. And I know from there as well that as a child, I was a picky eater. I was always labeled as a picky eater. I remember being that kid who had to be chased around with a fork. I was force fed. I didn't like eating. I didn't want to eat. So I, from the get go, didn't have a great relationship with food. I very much gravitated towards lots of dairy and refined carbohydrates. And it was no wonder that that was a majority of what I chose to eat. Not that that's what my parents only offered us. We came from an Arab background. It's a very Mediterranean diet, but that's not what I was interested in eating. So a lot of days I found myself predominantly sustaining myself on cereal and milk, bread and cheese, or some type of, Arabic pasta dish like macaroni with bechamel sauce. So I ate a lot of bread and a lot of cheese, and that it was predominantly my diet for many, many years in my life. And that led me to then becoming sick very often. I recall taking antibiotics on a very regular basis. I went to my doctor's office all the time. And it was our general family practitioner. And it was like, oh, yeah, here you're here again. Here's your antibiotics. Here's your little pink drink. Here's your Augmentin. See you soon. And I was always back because I always had some type of upper respiratory infection, an ear infection, tonsillitis. I had my tonsils removed when I was 5 years old. So I was a sickly kid. That continued. So as a child, that continued. I continued to become more of a picky eater. Now I know I just don't think I was raised with a very healthy relationship with food. And I do think that that is a root for a lot of picky eating that we see. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And so I was this picky eater. I ate a very limited diet. I didn't eat a lot of fiber. So I would eat fruit. I would not eat a lot of vegetables. I didn't eat a lot of whole grains. It was limited into what I was creating my body out of, creating my cells out of. And so fast forward to becoming an early adolescent. I remember right around the time I turned 8, I was in 3rd grade, I started gaining weight rapidly. And we do know that studies show that children develop their adipose tissue, their fat cells, most rapidly between 8 and 13 years old, where you're growing the volume and the number of fat cells that you have. So I was growing the number and I was growing in size. I became overweight and then obese in that time. And prior to that, I was a very underweight child. I remember being younger than that. I was a really, really thin, small child. And that doesn't mean I was healthy because, like I said, I didn't eat a variety. But at that time, I remember 3rd grade, I started rapidly gaining weight. So I went from being overweight over the next several years to becoming obese. And all this while, my diet continued to be limited. I continued to get sick and take antibiotics often. Once I started as a teen, I remember in high school, I would get UTIs often. So that was more antibiotics. I remember having food poisoning, very severe food poisoning. I remember this. It was from Wendy's. I went to eat at Wendy's
Ooh.
and I got food poisoning. And that was pretty gnarly food poisoning that I got. So these were all hits to my gut. Not to mention, I think being a first generation American with 2 working parents posed its own
Mm.
challenges to me. So I wouldn't say that I had the most peaceful childhood. I often found myself as a latchkey kid or maybe alone at home with my siblings, just watching lots of TV, eating while I did that, mindlessly eating. So I think that social mental component as well played into these impacts on my gut. So fast forward to that day that James started out with, I was 17 years old. I remember I was starting to hear weird things. I could hear my blood rushing, what I
Mhm.
thought by my ears. And I kept saying, I hear my blood really loudly. And so finally, my mom took me to the doctor. I saw an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and he immediately said, "You don't need me. You need to be seeing an endocrinologist," because he identified my thyroid looked very swollen and I had what looked like a goiter. And even when he felt it, he palpated it. My thyroid, in fact, did feel very swollen. So I went to see this endocrinologist, and thankfully, I was referred to an amazing endocrinologist. And he ran comprehensive blood work, which was how he diagnosed me with all of those things in one day during my follow up visit. And all the while, I had never really done blood work with my other physician. I was always criticized by my general practitioner for my weight gain, but I was never given advice on what to do or to see a dietitian or make any changes. It was kind of just like, you're gaining weight. You're gaining weight. And as a child, I don't know what that means and what the implications of that are, or even what to do with that information. So there I was at the endocrinologist's office. And as James mentioned, I'm diagnosed first and foremost with an autoimmune thyroid condition called Hashimoto's. It's an autoimmune condition in which your immune system targets the cells in your thyroid, and that can decrease their function. So usually, one of those autoimmune antibody numbers is less than 9. So anything less than 9 is normal. Mine were over 3,500, meaning 3,500 was the limit to what they could test. So who knows? Maybe mine were 9,000. Nobody knows. Maybe there were 3,501, but the lab could only read up to 3,500. So mine were beyond that. I was diagnosed with that autoimmune thyroid condition, high cholesterol. I was diagnosed with prediabetes, polycystic ovarian syndrome. I had elevated liver enzymes, so I probably had non alcoholic fatty liver disease as well. I never had an ultrasound to confirm that. And of course, I was not feeling great and I had IBS symptoms. So also was told, you likely have IBS. Um, and so I was devastated. I was about to start college. I'm about to embark on this next journey in my life. And I've been given all of this information and I was written a prescription and I was told, here's some medication. I was given 3 different medications to take after not taking anything my whole life. And I was told, if you ever want to become pregnant, you will probably need to take more medication because your hormones are completely imbalanced. And this was devastating for me. I remember feeling like this was a life sentence. I knew that other members of my family struggled with their health as well. I saw them with their little pharmacy of medication that they diligently took. And I knew that it wasn't what I wanted, but I didn't know yet what to do about it. But I went home for 3 months. I was a good patient. I took my medication. I was prescribed metformin for my pre-diabetes, and that gave me terrible stomach pain and diarrhea. I was prescribed a thyroid medication, and I was prescribed another medication for my hormones. And so, of course, I didn't start off with all those diagnoses feeling great, but there I was feeling even worse on these different medications because I didn't change anything else except add medication. It's not like I was making sure I was sleeping well, de-stressing, getting an exercise, starting to change my nutrition. I wasn't doing any of that. I just was taking medication on top of the same lifestyle. So I felt worse.
So just to clarify, I mean, at this point, like
Hmm.
let's take a checkpoint,
Let's take a drink.
because all this is happening, all this in your life, the stress, the junk foods, or or the, let's say, the
Highly processed.
highly processed foods, the lifestyle stays the same. So the action plan right now is adding on these medications, right? Like the
Mhm.
medications are going to do it all. Forget about exercise, forget about healthy eating, forget about stress reduction, mental health, spiritual health. The medications will do it all. And that's where you were. But
Mhm.
you were finding the medications were having side effects.
Yeah, I didn't feel well taking them. I think most of that was because of my lifestyle. So I just started researching alternatives. And at this
Mhm.
time, there was the internet available. So
Mhm.
I used the resources that I had online and I was starting to research Hashimoto's. What is Hashimoto's? I was told you have Hashimoto's. I didn't even understand what it was. So I started there. I started researching what is Hashimoto's. Then I started researching my other conditions. What is polycystic ovarian syndrome? What causes prediabetes? What causes any of these different things? And so I started finding these answers, and more and more and more, I was seeing a lot of it was lifestyle driven. So I thought, okay, I can control that. And I just started small. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop drinking soda. I remember I made that my New Year's resolution. I'm going to stop drinking soda. And then I said, I'm not going to eat fast food for the next several months. And I went to these very extremes. So along the journey, I learned a lot. And then I found myself with more questions. At this time, I'm a college student, I'm studying psychology, and started just trying to learn more. I took a nutrition class at that point just for college credit and for my own information because I was like, I think there's something to this nutrition thing. I should learn more about it. And I really loved that class that I took. So I actually loved it so much, I decided to change my major to nutrition. And at this time, I'm still patient. I'm still in the thick of it. I was like, you know what? How can I learn best outside of, what's going to teach me more than learning about this wholeheartedly? So I decided to jump into nutrition and I started just learning more and more. And so slowly but surely, my health started to change. I started incorporating exercise. I started incorporating stress management. And slowly, I started reducing my thyroid medication dosage. I came off of the diabetes medication, metformin, because my blood sugar levels started decreasing. My cholesterol went back down to a normal range without medication. My hormones were starting to normalize a little bit. So I was seeing positive changes. People were seeing positive changes as well. I started to lose weight at that point. I was significantly obese
Well, what
at
do you mean
that point.
people started seeing positive changes?
Well,
Oh,
people
like
just started
outside
noticing, yeah, like, hey,
outsiders.
you're
Okay.
looking different. You're looking healthier. What are you doing? And so I was like, okay, I think this is working. I'm feeling better. I'm looking better. I have more energy. I always thought I was just kind of this lazy kid, but actually my body was just completely metabolically imbalanced. So it continued from there. And I was able to continue to advocate for myself, decrease most of my medications, and continuing to learn. So I continued to learn for myself. I then in college studying nutrition met James, and we started just learning a little bit more about the food system. We both started out, I was taking a class about food systems, and I started learning more about Michael Pollan's work. So I watched Food Inc. I started reading his books. I remember reading The Omnivore's Dilemma and just learning more about where does our food come from and what's going on behind the scenes in our food system. And that led us to finding out about plant-based nutrition, where then James read the China study and he was like, hey, this is interesting. What do you think about this? And we started then making shifts into more of a plant forward diet. We're certainly not plant based, but little by little, we started making changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with all this progress, like even looking back when we first met, it's like, wow, we were still we were still eating like
A lot of
when we
processed
first
food.
met, we were still eating a lot of processed, especially like in
Yeah.
our opinions now, looking back and going like, wow, like there's still so much room for improvement. I think that's always the case as you're growing and you're taking action to build and grow as a person, both mentally, spiritually and physically. You look back and go, wow, I made a lot of progress. So yeah, I mean, even at these checkpoints, there's still a lot to be done, but Dahlia had done a lot of work. But even when I met her, the GI issues are still there. Like I remember her always being bloated after we ate, and I'm
You pointed it out to
as
me.
someone, yeah, and yeah, and it's so funny not even realizing that she didn't know it, and really what I was noticing, she didn't even notice because it was just so normal for her. That was pretty interesting to me because I've never had gut issues, right? Other than occasional like constipation when I'm maybe not drinking enough water as a kid or something, but it's always been pretty regular, no GI issues. So then meeting Dahlia and just seeing that, oh my, she's like, and sometimes it would, you'd have really bad stomach pain and just be like doubled over and like, what is this? Like, why is this happening? Like, whoa, this led to our, I think passion and that curiosity to dig deeper. And especially as we were learning about nutrition, going like, whoa, nutrition is so powerful. Could it be powerful in this way? And And then this cause and effect, right? Or this relationship between, if I change this happens, right? I made these changes and now I got off this medication. I made these changes and I feel and look better. What happens if I keep making changes and we tweak that and keep digging? And that's what Dahlia was doing.
That's what I still do. 'Cause
Yeah, we're still, yeah.
my story is continuing to progress over these years. So
Yep.
yeah, it was an eye opener when James was like, "You say every time you eat that you have a stomach ache," and I was like, "Oh, really?"
Hmm.
I do have stomach aches often, but I didn't realize how frequently. So I started to pay more attention to what is causing me to have stomach aches. And,
Hmm.
then we're becoming more plant based at that point. And so I was realizing, oh, when I stopped having dairy, a lot of my stomach aches decreased. I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure I'm part of the, 40 to 70% of the population who has lactose intolerance or maybe
Hmm.
milk protein intolerance. And then just incorporating more fiber into my diet, especially as we were decreasing animal products. Neither of us really ate pork when we met, so that wasn't like even a thing to think about cutting out. But then, we were like, okay, maybe we want to decrease our red meat intake, cut it out
Hmm.
completely, cut out chicken. And then we were pescatarian for a while. And then from there, we said, okay, let's reduce fish and replace it with other plant proteins. And then from there, decided, okay, for a long time, I was just an I think they call it
Lacto.
vegan.
Oh,
I was a
yeah, yeah.
vegan. So I was vegan plus eggs. So I did that for a long time. And then, once I was able to appropriately replace the protein in eggs with another plant protein, we became vegan. But it happened over, a year and a half, 2 years. And again, at this time, my health continued to improve. So I had already stopped my diabetes medication. I decided at that point that I wanted to get off birth control because I wanted to see what my menstrual cycles were like with PCOS without birth control. So I got off birth control. I was decreasing my thyroid medication more and more, and my health was continuing to improve. And that continued for several years. And so, we got married. And then I was starting to say, okay, well, I'm off birth control. I'm married. One day I will become pregnant. So I'm curious
Right.
about my fertility. So I worked with my doctor and I was like, hey, I know I've had PCOS in the past. I want to see the status of it. So she ordered ultrasound, blood work, and she
Mhm.
came back and said, actually, you have no detection of having PCOS at this time. It looks like you're in complete remission. Your PCOS reversed itself. So that was also another win where I was saying, okay. And then I became pregnant naturally, and had my daughter, had a healthy pregnancy. My care team was really worried about me having gestational diabetes during my pregnancy,
Mhm.
but I passed my glucose tolerance test with flying colors. I had no blood sugar issues during my pregnancy. My thyroid was very well monitored during my pregnancy as well, and continued to progress my health from there.
Thank you for watching this. We hope you know by now Married to Health really does everything we do coming from a need in our community, a need from our patients, a need from being dietitians for over a decade, from running our own private practice. And we continued that when we formulated Gut Nurture. So if you didn't know, Dahlia Marin, RDN, LD, CGN, formulated Gut Nurture along with Complement. We truly believe it is a great complement for your gut health journey. Why is that? Well, it's low histamine, it's low FODMAP, it's organic, even the package is compostable. We really designed it with a patient in mind that is wanting to eat more plants, that needs to eat more plants, but is struggling to eat more plants. This is that bridge. We also designed it for the person who's just like, I want to boost my gut, I want to feel really good, I want to help with the structure, function, and population of the gut. This is unlike anything that's really out there in that as it's focused on being a prebiotic, not really a probiotic. So the idea here, you can think of Gut Nurture as compost for your gut ecosystem. It's not trying to force seeds and the probiotics in, it's trying to create a beautiful environment and a beautiful foundation. So any seeds you get from the fermented foods you're eating, from your environment, from the beautiful habits you're building, whether you're working with us or not, they are going to fall on this beautiful, healthy soil with this beautiful, healthy compost and create a lush, beautiful ecosystem and garden, creating an abundance of fruit and postbiotics that are going to keep you healthy and thriving. So click down below, learn more about Gut Nurture, and we'll continue with the episode. And there's a big chunk. I mean, even before having our daughter, though, I got to go back a little bit.
Mm.
We were kind of our own. We were experimenting really on you. Like as we were learning, we were in our dietetics courses
Yeah.
and becoming dietitians. Like you were the
I
guinea
was the
pig
guinea pig.
of elimination diets, and we're learning about elimination diets and
FODMAPs,
FODMAPs, and we're learning about.
gluten-free.
So it's been like a decade ago or
Mhm.
more, probably like 12 years ago, like we started doing the elimination diets, and we started doing like
Mhm.
experiments with FODMAPs, and experimenting with AIP was really popular. I mean, still is, like the autoimmune paleo, but
Yeah.
she did like plant-based and just all these experimentation, and we'd find like what foods were this, but really we didn't know back then as deeply as we know now. We were really experimenting with the gut microbiome and really just the
Mhm.
human microbiome. And as we would adjust foods, we're adjusting microbial populations in the body and building others up and decreasing others, and kind of playing with these controls and these levers and going like, oh, I feel better. No, I don't feel better. Oh, I'm bloated now, but then it goes away. But then, and all of these
Mhm.
different things. So we're just sharing Dahlia's story. I wanna like interject here. We're just sharing Dahlia's story. We're not here to say like everyone go vegan. Everyone do
Mm-mm.
exactly what Dahlia's doing. I hope you see this as a message of hope, and really as another example of just how individualized this is and how patient sometimes you have to be. And this is
And you have to advocate for yourself.
and advocate for yourself and really understand like we started this from just ground zero and building up. And I think that's why Dahlia is such a special and unique and amazing dietitian, because she's taking all of this experience that she's done herself. And I hope this doesn't feel like we're not trying to sell you on be Dahlia's patient. She's booked
Yeah.
until next year. Like she doesn't need more patients, but it's really just selling you, if we're selling you anything, on your own abilities, your own power that you
Mhm.
have, your own. I mean, just I mean, guys, we're such a miracle. Our bodies are such miracles, let alone our microbiome. But we're selling on that you're a super organism. You're a walking miracle of your physiology and just this amazing relationship we have with food and microbes. So you can do amazing things. And early on in our undergrad and our knowledge and in this field of healthcare, like heal is like a taboo word. But we
Mm.
wanted to put it in this title because we do believe you can heal. Like a lot of the research has caught up to the idea of healing from these symptoms. Again, the symptoms aren't the disease, it's what is causing those symptoms to arise. The symptoms are basically your body's way to talk and communicate to you and let you know something isn't right. So this idea of healing is addressing root causes that will then do away with these symptoms. And as quickly as you can reverse or heal or whatever you want to call it, it can actually come back. And that
Mhm.
is still something Dahlia and I are really aware of, and you should be as well.
Yeah.
If Dahlia decided to just do a complete 180 and undo everything she's done over a decade of work, I guarantee her PCOS could come back, her prediabetes, you would gain weight just like we all gain weight,
Yeah.
and who knows what else would follow. So these things can come back. So as not so easy as you can, unfortunately, it's like this, right? It's very easy to bring these things on and get the symptoms. It can be a lot more difficult to undo and heal, reverse, whatever you want to call it, these symptoms. So yeah, so a lot there. But yeah, getting married and all of
Mhm.
that, yeah, our journey is quite complex at
And,
times.
I know you're saying it like, it's easier for it to come back, but being on the other side of it, I see that it's easier for me to do this and be very intentional with my nutrition,
Mhm,
my exercise, my sleep, my stress. It is so much easier and just beneficial and fruitful for me to do this than to live the way that I was living before. Because,
mhm,
people ask me all the time, how did you do this? How did you get to this point? And it's so much more than just nutrition. And I'm going to get into that as well. But it's,
mhm,
it's so intentional, but it's so worth it. The return on investment, what I get in response to it is so worth it. My body is not communicating and screaming all these different things at me, right? Sometimes your body whispers, sometimes it talks, it yells, and then it screams. And that's usually when you're diagnosed with something. So to me, it's easier to be intentional about these lifestyle management techniques than to live the way that I was living before, and to feel so unwell, and to feel so fatigued, and to feel so powerless, and feel like I need to rely on someone else to write me a prescription for
Mm.
health. I have decided that yes, I do still take medication for my thyroid. Like I mentioned to you guys before, when my antibodies were that high, literally part of my thyroid was destroyed by my immune system. So I've been down that path. I worked with an integrative care team to try to get off of my medication. I took, different supplements to support my thyroid, but I had poor quality of life. I had lots of symptoms come back. So I've decided my body's not telling me that it's time right now. I take a fraction of what I used to take, but that's still something that I'm still living with. So even though we
Mm.
titled this "Healing My IBS, my PCOS, prediabetes, and more," I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still healing. And I always want to share this with you all because I think it is just an important message of empowerment. So, sure, you might find yourself in a place where you're given news that isn't optimal, and you can always turn it around. And so I hope you take this to advocate for yourself, to reach out to others who can help you advocate for yourself. That's something I take dearly. I really see myself as a patient advocate when I work with my patients. So really want to make sure every patient understands where they are, why they are there, what they can ask for to get themselves out of that place, hopefully, and how they can see that they don't come back to that place. So, your body, in all cases, wants to heal. If given the right conditions, it can often figure it out. So, figuring out those right conditions for me, yes, was plant-based nutrition. So people always ask that. How did you do this? How did you get to a place where you reversed your prediabetes, you reversed your high cholesterol, you reversed your polycystic ovarian syndrome, you're living without IBS symptoms 99% of the time? How did you get here? And yes, I credit plant-based nutrition. I do eat a whole food plant-based diet for the most part.
And interject, yes, we Dahlia and I have been 100% plant-based. I know people have questions on this for
Mhm.
12 years. So we're still going strong. Actually, it'll be 12 years officially next year, but in a couple of months. So we're still going strong with that. We really, really enjoy it. And it's a continued experiment. And 12 years, we do our labs, we're going strong, we're feeling good. And yeah, but go ahead from there.
So that was a
Plant-based. That was
huge tool
huge.
for me,
Hmm.
but it wasn't the only tool, right? Seldom is it that jobs require just one single tool. So that was a
Yep.
huge tool for me in my toolbox, and it's been so valuable for me now that I've really figured out what I feel best with eating, my percentage of non-starchy vegetables, plant proteins, carbohydrates, fats, herbs, spices, all the great different types of antioxidants, polyphenols, and when I need to complement or supplement any of that. So for me, that's been extremely beneficial. But that's not the only thing I intook, right? Or I ate. Like it's been, like I said, a healing journey. So mental health is something that I've been so intentional with. I've
Huge.
eaten therapy, right? I've also created boundaries with people I needed to create boundaries with. I've been more mindful. I incorporate movement. So that's an important part of my life where I get in movement 5 to 7 days a week. I've, incorporated spiritual practices. So again, nutrition has been an amazing tool, one of the biggest tools, but there are so many others that are beneficial for people. So I encourage you all to continue to really explore how you can heal with each meal. That's something we're so passionate about. James and I trademarked that phrase, heal with each meal. But also, I encourage people to feel with each meal and really understand what is my relationship with food. Because I feel like until you understand that facet of it and you understand your particular relationship with food, it's going to be hard to heal with each meal. It's not just about the food that you're eating, it's the mental state in which you're eating that food as well. I have this conversation with myself often, but also share it with my patients of really the food that you invite into your home is like a roommate. And it is a relationship. It's someone you're going to cohabitate with or something you're going to cohabitate with. Not every relationship is hunky dory, right? Not every relationship is one that you want to be seeing that person every single day of the week. So when you are thinking about food, when you are buying food, when you're around food, what is your relationship with it? Why is that your relationship with it? Is that coming from a place of trauma? Is that coming from a place of comfort eating and avoiding your emotions? Are you hedonically eating where you're not really even aware and hungry? What is your relationship with food? Because just like with people, you don't necessarily want to live with everyone, right? There are certain foods that you'll find you feel amazing with, and you want to see them every single day. Maybe you're married to that food, if you will. That's a core food for you. You want to see them every day, you want to be with them every day. Great. There might be other foods where you say, okay, I'm going to live with you, but maybe I'll keep you in the freezer. So I'm not seeing you, consuming you every single day. There are other foods where you might identify, I have love for you and I feel like I love you so much. And maybe you don't love me back all the time. So maybe I don't want to live with you. Maybe I'll just see you from time to time. I'll see you at events, I'll see you on the weekends, but I don't think we should live together. And then there might be foods where you say, still have some love for you. Can tell there's some friction here. I'll see you once in a while. Maybe on holidays, you're like that annoying uncle who I still love, but maybe I don't want to live with this uncle. And you see them less frequently. And there might be foods, just like there are people in our lives that are maybe you don't love them and they don't love you back, right? It might be an unhealthy, fractured relationship. And so that might be a food that you need to be no contact with either at this time, and that can always change, but you need to identify these things. How does this food make me feel? Kind of like you would ask that about a person. How does this person make me feel when I'm around them? In my own health story, I was consuming a lot of foods that, just like with people, if you're around toxic people, a lot of the times they're going to make you feel really unwell and imbalanced. And so early on in my health journey, I was over cohabitating with foods that I didn't have a healthy relationship with. And that leads you again to not just feel poorly physically, but often mentally, where you find yourself being addicted to these highly addictive substances in some of these foods and then feeling like, oh, why did I see them? It's like, why did I hook up with that person again? Like, we broke up, we got away from each other. Why is this happening? So that's always something that I encourage people to do. That's something I constantly do. And I still have some of these different things. And, I said we eat mostly whole food plant based, but that doesn't mean we only eat plant based. I still enjoy different plant based, more processed foods, and I enjoy them freely. But I identify, even with some of these things, I still don't have a healthy relationship with them. And I love them, but they might not love me back. Or maybe they have a different attachment style. So maybe I am overly attached to them, right? And so I'm still on this journey where I'm learning, okay, I don't want to buy gluten-free pretzels to put in my daughter's lunch because I don't have a good relationship with them. It ends up being an unhealthy thing for me. So we've just decided, all right, I don't think I'm going to buy those for the moment and keep them living with me. We don't have a healthy
I see
relationship right
great
now.
questions and comments, but I want to ask you, I mean,
Yeah.
what were some of those foods before
Mm,
and what are some of the foods now? Like, and how are they
yeah.
different? What would you say?
So I was that person. I was a pizza lover. And
So wait, these are the foods that you don't want
before,
anything to do with,
no, I
or
still eat
what?
pizza, but it's a different quality of pizza.
Right.
It's a different breed of pizza. So before, like I mentioned, I was very much a carb and dairy cheese person. That was my thing. So even when we were vegetarian, I ate so much pizza. I would eat a lot of pizza growing up. I would go to Little Caesars and get my little $5 pizza a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So again, I think it was the for me at that time, the gluten was not working out well for me. I clearly had IBS, and gluten is high FODMAP. And so I was eating a lot of this refined gluten. I was also having a lot of lactose in my diet, lots of dairy cheese, which was leading me to be very inflamed and have leaky gut, intestinal hyperpermeability, probably most days because I wasn't eating a lot of foods that helped heal my gut up. I wasn't eating a lot of fiber that my healthy gut microbes could ferment. I was really feeding into the ones that were causing inflammation, causing imbalance in my gut. And that's why I was always sick and I always had UTIs and I always had stomach issues. So lots of like pizza was a huge one for me before. I loved sweets as well. I was that person who I would love to eat mousse, and I would eat like cheesecake and just very rich, decadent dairy desserts.
Candy.
I would eat candy.
Oh, I was eating
Weird
candy when
coming
I
out how
first
much,
met her.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
I
so funny.
loved candy. I would eat Swedish fish and those little watermelon gummy candies.
Yeah.
I would eat those often. And mac and cheese, we would eat mac and cheese. And slowly we were like, hey, we should add broccoli in the mac and cheese. We should do this in the, regular dairy mac and cheese. But really just, I would eat a lot of those things, refined carbohydrates and dairy. And slowly I started shifting to adding more plants to my diet. Like I said, slowly over time, I would add broccoli to my mac and cheese, and I started adding tuna to it. And then I started learning how to add beans to my diet because I really didn't eat a lot of variety of beans. So I started learning along the way. And someone's asking, do you use supplements to heal your gut or just plant foods? Initially, again, learning the research was just taking vitamin B12, and that was it. But starting to learn more about myself, I learned if you're on a plant based diet, you really need at least three key things: vitamin B, vitamin D, omega 3. So your B's, D's, your omega 3s, you really should be having. So I added that. And I personally I've used different supplements over the
Mhm.
years. I've been properly trained in how to use supplements. I've taken lots of courses on nutraceuticals. I'm a certified functional nutritionist. I don't promote that because I don't always agree with everything in functional medicine. But I've personally, yes, at different times I have experimented with different supplements. I formulated a supplement over the years where I took the things that helped me heal my gut and things that I've recognized help patients with IBS and other symptoms, and we formulated gut
Not to,
nurture.
I mean,
Um,
I'm not trying to sell this to you
no,
guys, but if you
but if
want
you
to check
guys
it
are
out.
interested, we did work with Complement and we formulated gut nurture. So these were a lot of things I used for myself. These are things that are evidence based. These are things I use with my patients, but
Yeah.
most of it was plant foods. So now when I'm eating things like pizza, it's a bean crust, right? It's made out of beans. And then we're
Mm.
using whole food sauces that are full of vegetables.
Our pizzas
And
look way different than
yeah.
when they used to. It's so crazy, but it happens over time, and yeah,
Mhm.
this slow kind of
And
change.
it's like
It's
a
great.
pizza salad. Yeah. So I'm still enjoying those same foods. I'm not a different person. I still enjoy pizza. I still enjoy baked goods, but I bake them at home and I sweeten them with dates and I'm using whole grain flours. So, and I'm having a lot more fiber in my diet. So a lot more non-starchy veggies. And this to this point has helped me with my gut tremendously. I didn't mention another blip I had in my health story. And I
Oh yeah,
realized
yeah,
it's
yeah.
been 40 minutes of sharing my health story, which is a trip. Um, but in this journey and in learning about all these different things, now that someone asked about supplements, I found myself at one point as I'm learning more about nutrition and integrative nutrition. I was working with a large hospital system out here,
Mhm.
and they were really trying to integrate functional and integrative medicine and nutrition into larger healthcare systems because they were recognizing patients are seeing functional medicine doctors and naturopaths, and we don't know what they're doing. So we'd rather integrate them into our system so we can see their notes, we can see what supplements the patients are taking, and it's just a little bit more integrated. So I got to work in that setting, which was super cool because I got to work on both sides, the integrative, more of the Western side, and then more of the preventive, functional, integrative side. So that was a really cool experience. In that experience, my team wanted to lead detox classes. And at that time, it was before we knew as much as we did now. It seemed very well researched, seemed like a good idea. And, in certain conditions, I do agree with whole food detoxes, right? We know our friend, Dr. Vivian Chen, if you don't follow Plateful Health, she has a great Detox Right course where she helps people
Mhm.
detox through whole plant foods and herbs and things like that. This was a different program where I was using food, but also these detox supplements. And I think I just went too hard, too heavy. And I don't think that I had proper introduction into it. I don't think my detox pathways were ready for it. I was still, dealing with some gut issues at that point sometimes. And so I started this detox program. I finished it up. I felt better, but then I started feeling off. I didn't realize that over the years, I would occasionally have acute appendicitis, and I would just call them stomach attacks. I would be doubled over in pain. It would happen when I was extremely stressed and not sleeping and not eating well, but I would get these stomach attacks. No one ever knew what they were. I didn't really seek medical care because they would leave as fast as they would come once I was able to rest, have a bowel movement, whatever. So I did this detox, and then a couple months later, I was under the most stress in my life up until that point, not sleeping, very stressed, not nourishing my body well because we were moving, so many things were happening,
So much going on.
death of a close person. I had the worst stomach pain of my life. It was like a stomach attack on steroids.
Thank you so much for watching this video. We know you're probably getting quite a bit from it. It can be a lot of information, it can be overwhelming, and we totally get that. Dahlia was there not too long ago suffering with IBS and SIBO-like symptoms. She was hunched over very often, bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, skin issues, hormonal issues, the list goes on and on. So we know this. We've been in practice now as registered dietitians for over a decade, and we created our Good Gut SIBO IBS program for you. If you're experiencing IBS, SIBO symptoms, IMO, SIFO, the list goes on and on. If you're like, I'm not really sure what this is, click down below. We have a free assessment for you, and that'll likely lead you to our Good Gut SIBO IBS program, which is chock full of information we wish we had. It's information that we're giving to our patients, so it's all at your fingertips in one package. It's 7+ hours of video. It is dozens and dozens of handouts. It's tailored meal plans and recipes to truly help you get to the root, to truly help you understand what's going on so you can truly heal with each meal. Check it out down below.
So I called my colleague who is, a gastroenterologist, and I said, "Hey, these are my symptoms. What do you think is happening?" And she was like, "Go to the hospital. You either ruptured an ovarian cyst or it's your appendix." And sure enough, it was the latter. It was my appendix. So just a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, as I'm working with GI patients, figuring out my gut issues, I had to have my appendix removed. I had acute appendicitis. And I'm really thinking that what happened was I did this detox. I liberated all these toxins into my system. I didn't have proper outlet for them, and they all accumulated then in my appendix, and it had to be removed. So I'm sad. I lost my appendix.
And it's almost going on. This is almost 4 years
That was
ago.
almost 4 years
Almost 4 years
ago.
ago. And this goes to
Mhm.
show you guys we're always learning and growing, and we everything we provide for the most part we experiment on ourselves. We're our guinea pigs. We're our
Uh,
patients for the most part primarily.
and we're reading a lot of data
And we're
as we
reading a
go
lot of
along.
data. And so with that, that really opened our eyes, especially to more of the just energy, right? Where food is
Mhm.
energy, thoughts are energy, trauma's energy. And so seeing this culmination, what we call perfect storms
Mhm.
of stress energy, of trauma energy, right? Of someone dying, moving. It was so many outside factors on top of inside factors, chemical factors with the detox, just culminating into this perfect storm, causing so much chaos, if you will, in
Mhm.
Dahlia's body. And it was crazy to see. So
Yes.
very, very interesting.
And it was a learning experience for me as
Yeah.
well to just be very mindful and to help patients understand that as well of, hey,
Mhm.
one, we do know your body is trying to detox. And if your own detox organs aren't working, if your liver is having trouble filtering things out via your gut, via
Mhm.
your kidneys through urine, your gut through stool, your skin through sweat, your lungs through respiration, you need to work on that first. And don't be
Mhm.
trying to detox extra things that they can't even get out of your body in the appropriate areas. So that was a learning
Mhm.
experience. I've had so many learning experiences, both from my own health story, my patients' health stories. First and foremost, the data. You all know I'm a nerd. I'm a proud nerd. I love learning. I love taking courses. Like I said, I've become certified in many different things, but especially in the gut. So got that certified gut nutritionist. I like to take several courses a year, but it's really just to learn the most up to date data and help people continue to, like I said, heal with each meal and feel with each meal. So that's my health story. I
Wow.
am here today. And like I said, I'm whole food plant based and I'm free of almost every single one of those diagnoses that I was ever given outside of my autoimmune thyroid condition. But it's still my goal to put it into remission one day and to hopefully not have those high antibodies or to just have undetectable antibodies. I'm almost there. I've made extreme progress, which I'm so grateful for. But It was
Love
only
it.
through lots of persistence, a really strong partner, lots of discipline, and lots of determination to really see myself through on the other end. So I hope this has been a story of inspiration because I know for myself, as being someone who has not lived with perfect health, I often would have moments of thinking, other people aren't going through this. I'm the only one who's having this. I often had imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm a dietitian and I have my own health issues. Why would anyone listen to me? But I truly do feel like it's been the best learning experience, learning opportunity for me to go through it myself and to really empower people to ask the right questions, to advocate for themselves, just like I've had to advocate for myself so many times over the last several decades that I've been dealing with this, and to come out on the other side feeling so great. So thanks for listening. I want to answer some of these
We
questions
see
and
your
address some
questions
of these
coming in. I love
comments,
it. I
but
love it.
let us know if you have any other questions.
Um,
All right,
yeah.
let's get to
Give me
some of
that
these
one.
different things. Which one?
All right, I thought you had it on this one. No.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Well, you mentioned. I saw a question on Hashimoto's. Oh, because you mentioned Hashimoto's, and they're still kind of. I mean, that is still there. So, what is Hashimoto's? I've never heard of that before.
Mm-hmm.
What is Hashimoto's?
So, Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition. It's a condition in which the immune system starts to create a targeted attack against the cells in your thyroid gland. So, we know the thyroid is this butterfly shaped gland on either side of your Adam's apple on in your throat, and your thyroid is responsible for many things. Metabolism and rate of metabolism is one of them. And so when I had such low thyroid function, I was often very constipated, bloated. I was fatigued. I had extreme weight excess. My hair was thin and dry and falling out. My skin was dry. So
Mm,
one of my major organs involved in my endocrine system and my metabolism was malfunctioning. So with Hashimoto's, again, it's that autoimmune attack rendering your thyroid oftentimes under functional. So oftentimes it leads to hypothyroidism, whereas Graves is an autoimmune condition that leads to excess production of thyroid hormone. I have the opposite, where I don't produce enough thyroid hormone, which is why I take outside exogenous synthetic thyroid hormone. So that way it can make up for what my thyroid is not able to make at this point in time. Great
great,
question.
great question. We're looking. Okay, perfect. Another one. Do you take medication for PCOS, or is it completely managed by diet?
I don't. So for PCOS, I used to take hormones. I used to take birth control. And at this point in time, I don't take anything. Like I mentioned, my PCOS is completely undetectable on both blood work and ultrasound. So I, at this time, do not take anything for PCOS. Um, yeah. And, again, with having one set of hormones, my thyroid hormones are out of whack. Over the years, I've used different things to help manage supporting production of certain hormones, such as producing more progesterone. So I have used different things to help support increasing progesterone production. I've used fiber, dietary fiber, supplemental fiber as well, to also reduce my estrogen levels. So that way I was making sure that I was excreting excess estrogen through my stool rather than having excessively high estrogen. So over the years, I have done and used different things like chaste tree berry and other things to help with balancing my hormones, but it wasn't specifically for PCOS because it's been undetectable for about 9 years now.
What happens if you push that?
I don't know.
I figured
Okay.
Instagram's changed. But anyway, great questions, guys. We're seeing some great comments from Instagram as well. Thank you for everyone just commenting, sharing your perspective, and thanking Dahlia for hers. And this was like cliff notes. I mean, this was more in depth, which is why we wanted to do this. But you could see, I mean, there's even so much more. I mean, detail. I mean, everyone's individualized, and
And we all have
yeah.
our own background and, family background. And something I always tell my patients is sometimes it's very hard to send a changed person into an unchanged environment. So I see that with
Mhm.
my patients. I feel for them when they're going through that. I fortunately have had for the last, how we've been married almost 10 years. So we've been living together for, 10 years. I have had a partner who's very on board with changing our environment and being on board with these changes that I've made. I recognize not everyone has that. And I recognize cultural background plays into that, resources, finances, education
Mhm.
levels. So it has been something I've been very fortunate with. And someone made a comment. I definitely agree that being a first generation American brings in a great amount of stress. It's just, you're learning, and you're learning along with your family to live in a completely different environment. And so it brings in an added level of sometimes barriers, but also I think sometimes so much perspective and insight that other people just haven't had the opportunity to have. So being a first generation Arab American has been such a blessing, I think. And yes, it has come with struggles as well, but been, yeah, an interesting facet of my journey to deal with that side of things.
So we'll answer as many questions on Instagram. We'll probably time out, but it continues. And you can find this on our YouTube, Facebook. So if you guys want to rewatch this, because there's a lot of gems in here. What gluten-free grains do you eat? Great question.
Love this
Saw that
question.
question.
So there was a study that did show that those on gluten-free diets had higher association with cardiovascular disease. So in that study, a lot of the findings were that the variety of whole grains were very limited. We do know wheat, and whole wheat in particular, is extremely nutrient dense. So there's lots of fiber in there, B vitamins, fat soluble vitamins, lots of nutrition in wheat. If you are going gluten free because you have celiac disease, non celiac gluten sensitivity, you find that it generates inflammation for you, I think step one is try just having better quality wheat. So maybe you're trying to go to something like a sprouted wheat, like Ezekiel bread, or you're having a fermented wheat, like sourdough bread. Try better quality wheat. If you are going to go off of gluten completely, have a healthy variety of different types of gluten-free whole grains. So at first, going gluten-free, I was pretty much just eating rice and corn and oats and potatoes like most people eat. And those are wonderful, and I still eat those. I also eat quinoa and amaranth, wheat, millet, teff, fonio. I try to incorporate as much variety of gluten-free whole grains as I possibly can.
Beautiful. Do you work with patients who want to keep meat as part of their diet or only whole food plant-based?
Yes. So I don't discriminate, nor should anybody if they're a healthcare practitioner. I work with those who are predominantly plant-based, 100% plant-based, wanting to eat more plants, or those who have found the percentage of plants that works for them. So my goal is always to help people incorporate and tolerate more plants than they already are. But no, that's not a requirement at all. Not something I expect for every patient, because I recognize that might not work 100% for people. So we have seen the research is very strong, showing that 80+% plant-based is conducive to great health, more of a Mediterranean plan, plant predominant plan. But there's nothing really that we can say in the data that says 100% plant-based is the way to go. So I'm not going to perpetuate something that's not true.
All right. You want to do when is bloating normal versus not normal? That's one of Dahlia's passions.
Love talking about bloating.
That's
And
great.
we've talked about bloating in one of our other YouTube. So go to our YouTube channel if you
Yes.
want to see one of our other lives on this. But there's a difference between the sensation of bloat. Bloat is really a sensation that comes from your nerves feeling irritated by either expansion of your gut or dysbiosis. So you can feel bloated without looking distended. Distension is the physical appearance of the bloat. So distension is when you clearly have either gas or muscles that loosen after you eat. You can look distended and not feel bloated. You can feel bloated without looking distended. It's normal to be a little bit distended after you eat, especially if you're eating a high volume of food, right? If you had a really high fiber meal and you ate a large volume of food, that food had to go somewhere. So you're going to be a little bit distended. That should go down within a couple of hours after eating. If you're going from a 0 out of 10 bloat or distension to a 9 out of 10, and it's extremely uncomfortable and painful, if you're producing a lot of gas after that and it doesn't resolve in a couple hours, that's abnormal. So that's when you really want to look into it. And excess gas is more than 15 to 20 times a day. So if your gas is excess with the bloat, if it smells like stool or it smells like rotten eggs, and then if your bloat doesn't go down by the time you're ready for your next meal, that's abnormal bloat.
Right. I want to see.
And someone said a tough part of healing is that it can be lonely. Oof, that is so true. I think something really fortunate that we do have now is so many social media support groups. It can be a blessing and a curse as well, because I see some shady advice being given on some of those groups. But it's nice to find other people who can kind of commiserate with you, who have gone through the same thing as you have. So I encourage you, if there are groups like that, search Facebook, search Instagram, search wherever, and find people who are going through the same thing, because absolutely it can feel very isolating. I always felt that way of what's wrong with me. I'm the one who's so sick. And sometimes I feel that even with James, and he's so
I
compassionate and
should
so
be
patient.
sicker than I am.
James will share his health story one day too. But yeah, I would always say, like, you just don't get it. You're healthy.
If you guys want
So,
to hear my health story, let us know. Comment down
mm,
below. If not, I totally understand. Mine's not as cool as Dahlia's, or I should say, as not cool. It is
had a
cool. It's
different
cool
journey.
how you've grown and how you've changed. That's really cool.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
let's see. We got.
All
I wonder
right.
if I click that.
Okay, so someone else, we'll
Okay,
see
we're
here
getting
on
some
YouTube
questions here.
that someone else is saying, I was a picky eater according to my mom. I also have gut issues. And as an international student, I feel like a lot of students, especially international students, are very stressed.
Mm,
Yes, absolutely. So being in a different environment, you are actually changing your gut microbiome environment. So physically changing location will
mm,
actually shift your gut a little bit, sometimes for
yep.
the better, sometimes for the worse. But those first 1,000 days and really your relationship with food can all factor into it, your medication use. So I feel like I've shared my story just as a testament to the fact that, again, your body wants to heal when given the right conditions. And I hope that it's inspired you to keep searching for your answers rather than just resolve to live in pain or live in discomfort or feel like nobody out there is going through what you're going through or nobody can help you.
People are we're seeing people say they want to hear my health story. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. One of the last questions I'm seeing, do you want that one? Someone asked, where do we recommend to go to school for this? Or like where we
Mm.
went to school to learn more about nutrition. Um, Look, and I would say it depends on what you want to do. It's great to intern, volunteer, follow, and really assess like, okay, what do I want to do with this field of nutrition? Because it is broad. You're talking food service, you're talking if you private practice, hospital, and various. I mean, I think there's way more options than when we were in school a while back now. But so it really just depends on what you want to do with this. But I would say, I mean, it is just finding an accredited, if you're looking for dietetics, a didactic program. We do like,
Or even before getting there, there
oh
are
yeah,
cool certification
oh
courses.
yeah.
We really love the Center for Nutrition Studies, eCornell plant-based nutrition certification. If you take it, you might see two familiar faces on
We're
there. We
biased,
did
guys.
we
We
did
have to
create the
admit.
gut health module, but it's an amazing certification course. If you're a healthcare practitioner, you can get continuing education units for completing it. But if you just want to learn more about plant-based nutrition or nutrition in general, that could be a great place to start before you're like, I'm going to go to school for
Mm,
nutrition. If you really love it, then absolutely invest further. I started at a junior college. I took a nutrition class at a junior
mhm.
college, and I had a full circle
Same.
moment when I was able to teach that class that I took several years ago. So I was able to
Yeah.
actually teach that class at that same college, and that was a cool moment for me. But take a class at a junior college, or find if you actually enjoy it before you dive all into it. And then if you do want to, there are accredited nutrition programs where you can get your master's or PhD in nutrition and dietetics.
Wow.
Someone is
Love it.
asking one more great question. Can you repair
Yeah.
your gut from antibiotic use?
Ooh.
It can take time. And it depends on how your body reacted to the antibiotics. If you really need antibiotics, absolutely take them in dire need. But if you don't, and your body can, you can rest, you can hydrate, you can nourish your body, antibiotics are not necessarily always the answer. And studies show that they might affect your gut for 6 to 12 months after taking them. So that's not the
Mm.
case with everybody. If you have taken antibiotics, get back to eating your fiber, eat probiotic rich foods, try to decrease inflammation, and sleep, rest, hydrate, decrease stress. So, yes, the answer is yes, but everybody might have reacted to them differently.
You guys have some great questions. I've seen more
Yes,
come in,
I
but
know these are. What are some mindset shifts that have helped
it's
you
a
with
great
your
one.
journey? Ooh, I think the most important mindset shift was that my body wasn't out to get me. It was
Mm,
simply just trying to send a message. And rather than trying to micromanage my body into doing what I wanted it to do, I've leaned into listening to what it's trying to tell me. Cause I just thought, well, no, I have to eat all these different types of plants. No, I have to do hit workouts. I just have to exercise harder. I just have to do this.
mm.
And I was trying to micromanage my body, but my body was saying, girl, no, stop. So really that was an important mindset shift for me, that I just needed to stop and listen and really just try to hear what my body was telling me. When I'm tired now, I rest. I don't just try to push through it. I listen to what my body was telling me. After I would do hit workouts, I didn't feel my best. So I stopped doing them and I started leaning into yoga and Pilates and walks and jogs instead of forcing myself to run miles and miles. And really, I think that was one of the most important mindset shifts that I had. Also, one of the most important mindset shifts that I had was, one, medication is not always the enemy, and it can be a useful tool when you need it. Sometimes it's not needed, sometimes it is, and just learning to be grateful for help can be helpful. And then another mindset shift that I did have as well was, um, I was learning that, sorry, our daughter called and I got sidetracked. Um, my relationship with food. I think that was so important to me, to really realize, why do I want to eat this food? How do I feel when I eat this food? What is my relationship with this food? Do I love this food and does it love me back? I think those were such important shifts for me.
If I can add one more, is just energy, the transfer of energy and that
Mm,
mindset, and realizing, yes, food is energy. Talking with a partner and loving one another is energy. Those people that maybe yell at you and talk negative to you is energy. The trauma you experienced as a first generation, whatever, from Egypt or from Mexico or wherever, the trauma you experienced or the negative vibes you had as a young child, and if you're not addressing them, and this
mm,
goes to the layers, right? We have the nutrition and the physical, we have the mental, we have the spiritual, that transfers, right? So this transfer of energy is very, very important to understand and to keep in mind. So that is a whole nother shift and a game changer. And yeah, very, very important.
okay.
Okay.
And someone's asking, can you talk about fibromyalgia and arthritis, or refer me to an earlier talk? We're going to refer you to our friend. We recommend you follow Dr. Micah Yu on Instagram. He can be found as My Autoimmune MD. And
Mhm.
Dr. Yu is incredible. He's a plant-based, he's multiple board certified in lifestyle medicine. He's integrative medicine, becoming board certified, functional medicine, learning more about functional medicine. But Dr. Yu is an amazing rheumatologist. So I would refer you to him because he's going to be the expert on that.
All right, everybody. Can't wait to do this again. Good Gut Live's happening once a month. Stay tuned for our dietitian talk.
That
A lot
happens
of
once
great
a month.
stuff coming up, guys. Click below to learn more, to get plugged into our email list and just get plugged into our practice. And we're really excited you're here watching and can't wait to help you heal with each meal. So have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. If we don't see you soon, happy holidays and all this good stuff that's going
If you
on.
want some freebies and some whole plant food recipes, go to our website. You can get our Plantsgiving Good Gut
Mhm.
Holiday Guide. You can get our Gut Health Blueprint on our website. You can get so many cool free downloads, read our blogs, you can access our free recipes. Or if you want more recipes, you can check out our Good Gut A to Z book as well.
All right,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. We hope you continue to heal with each meal.